When the signal was discovered, the world leaned forward, waiting for meaning. Governments convened, experts speculated, faiths searched their scriptures for relevance. Humanity, for a brief moment, believed the universe might speak. But nothing answered. No greeting, no threat, no declaration of intent, only an object in the sky that stopped. This is the part no one had prepared for, the waiting, the feeling of being looked at without knowing by whom or why. Because silence is not absence, silence is attention. This is chapter 2, The Silent Observer. Humanity had always imagined first contact in many ways, a crackling transmission, a radiant ship descending in peace, even an invasion. No one expected silence. A controlled, powered object, one undeniably alien, had entered the solar system. It moved with intention, adjusting course, shifting velocity, and then it stopped. Now it simply watched. The world reacted as it always did. In London, the headline screamed in hysteria, "Alien ship in our skies, what comes next?" In New York, crowds gathered in Times Square, faces tilted to the heavens, as though expecting a message to appear in the stars. In Sao Paulo, street artists painted the vessel on crumbling walls, its formless, grey shape now an icon of both hope and dread. But for most people, it was still too big to comprehend. It was easier to worry about rent, bills, breakups and promotions, to scroll past the headlines and latch onto something smaller, something human. They left the thinking to their governments, to their experts. Someone else will handle it. But not everyone had that luxury. In Liverpool, Helen Grant's fork scraped against her plate. Her grip too tight, her knuckles white. She hadn't eaten much, hadn't been able to. But her daughter had no such concerns. Sophie twirled a single pea on the tines of her fork, giggling to herself, carefree, oblivious. Helen's gaze flickered to the kitchen counter, where the news anchor's voice hummed through the small television. The object remains stationary in orbit. No signals detected, no attempts at communication. She barely heard the words. It didn't matter. Nothing comes all this way just to sit and watch. "Can I have ice cream?" Sophie asked, swinging her legs beneath the table. Helen forced a smile. "Of course, sweetheart." The lie sat heavy on her tongue. There was no ice cream. She wouldn't be going to the shops. The thought of walking beneath that thing, of carrying on as though it wasn't hanging there in the sky, was unbearable. Her gaze drifted to the cupboard under the stairs, a pathetic attempt at preparedness. Bottled water, canned soup, a flashlight she hadn't checked, a plan she didn't believe in. Sophie giggled again, utterly safe in her mother's illusion. Helen envied her. But more than that, she feared for her. Because when, not if, something happened, she wouldn't be able to protect her. Across the planet, the reaction was the same. Uncertainty wrapped in routine. A bartender in New York poured whiskey for a silent patron. Both of them stared at the live feed on the screen behind the bar. "What do you think it wants?" the bartender asked. The man lifted his glass, his fingers trembling slightly. He didn't answer. In Mumbai, pilgrims knelt in prayer at the gateway of India, hands raised to the sky. Some whispered hymns, believing this was a sign from the heavens. Others feared it was a test, that whatever was watching would judge them unworthy. Online, the battle raged between the hopeful and the doomed. #alien peace flooded timelines, alongside #end of days. Theories multiplied, some brilliant, some absurd, all equally useless. None of it changed the fact that the ship was still there, watching, waiting, offering nothing in return. In the Prime Minister's office, Anthony Sterling stood rigid, his hands locked behind his back, trying and failing to look composed. Sir Colin Michael sat at his desk, posture sharp, eyes unreadable. The Prime Minister had built his career on certainty, on control. He was not accustomed of having to wait. And yet here he was, waiting for an answer that no one had. So, his voice was level, clipped. Tell me what we do know. Anthony hesitated. He'd rehearsed this conversation a dozen times, but it didn't make the words any easier. It's scanning us, sir. Colin's fingers drummed once against the desk before stilling. Scanning? Subtle energy fluctuations, barely detectable. The Americans and Chinese have seen the same pattern. Best guess is that it's mapping the planet. Colin exhaled slowly through his nose, evaluating us. He hated the thought. And what, he said, voice tightening, is our official position on this? Do we sit here like good little observers and hope it means us no harm? Anthony straightened, trying to keep his voice tone even. We have no response to provoke, sir. No message to misinterpret. He paused. Right now, silence is the best strategy. Colin's gaze flicked towards the rain-speckled window. Beyond the glass, London stretched out before him, big, sprawling, and human. And yet, it felt small now. We are the leaders of a sovereign nation, Colin said, voice quiet but edged with steel. Not some bloody tribal settlement waiting for the gods to descend. Anthony's mouth tightened, but he said nothing. Colin let out a slow breath, pressing his fingers together so hard they went white. He'd spent his life controlling outcomes, dictating terms. Now, they were not in control. They were being measured, and they had no idea whether they would pass the test. Days passed. The ship remained silent, unmoving, a weight pressing down on the world. People continued with their lives, pretending the future wasn't uncertain, pretending that tomorrow was promised. What they didn't know was that the vessel was far from inert. Inside its seamless shell something watched. It gathered, it measured, it weighed. It did not need to send a warning. It had already decided. Across the world, people searched the sky for meaning. Parents lied gently to their children, leaders pretended certainty. Strangers shared drinks, prayers, and theories. Anything to fill the quiet. But the ship didn't care. It didn't respond to fear or hope. It didn't react to belief or disbelief. It didn't need to announce itself. It was never here to speak. It was here to watch. And while humanity argued about what the silence meant, a decision was already being made. If you're enjoying And Man Was a Vengeful Creation, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with someone who enjoys slow burn cosmic horror and apocalyptic fiction. It helps these stories continue and helps the signal spread. Join us next time when the silence gives way to action and humanity learns that being observed is not the same as being spared. And until then, remember, just because nothing is happening doesn't mean that nothing is coming.